Good evening. Good evening to those joining from India, and good afternoon to those joining from Europe, and good morning to those joining from US New York time. I would like to thank all the panelists and guests of Dravidian Professional Forum who have joined us today. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce the topic. And since our audience, some of audience and panel is international, I would also like to say a few words about Tamil Nadu to set the context. Climate change is a super wicked problem. Super wicked problem because time is running out, and it's a problem for which there is no single authority. It's intergenerational in character, and all credible solutions are undesirable in relation to the unstable status quo, and the threat is existential. The number of countries announcing pledges to achieve net zero emissions over the coming decades continue to grow. But the pledges by governments to date, even if fully achieved, fall well short of what is required to achieve net zero by 2050. Time is indeed running out. According to NASA, since 1880, the average temperature has risen by 0.8 degrees Celsius. If the current status quo continues, the average temperature could rise by 0.8 degrees Celsius to 3.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. And there is also a 20% chance that it could rise above 4.5 degrees Celsius. This is unsustainable. Going into Tamil Nadu, Tamil Nadu is one of the most India's developed states. Approximately, it contributes to US $300 billion in GDP. And it is the second biggest state in terms of GDP contribution. And also when it comes to GDP per capita, second highest, followed by Haryana. State is also one of the leaders in India in socioeconomic metrics. Beat any metric, such as the graduate enrollment ratio, for which in Tamil Nadu stands at 49%, is highest in India, and also is better than countries such as the USA. And also, if you look at poverty rates, Tamil Nadu ranks lowest, along with Kerala, 4.7% and 0.6% respectively. And Tamil Nadu also has one of the best healthcare system in India, and it could be compared to some of the developed countries. If Tamil Nadu were a country, wind energy contribution would rank top 5 in the world. That notwithstanding, the Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu had taken strong initiatives in climate change mitigation and achieving net zero carbon emissions. Before coming to power, Dravidian Professionals Forum itself of experts provided a manifesto suggestion for creating a better world. Some of our suggestions are also included in the party manifesto, and they were also further pursued. As a testament to Tamil Nadu government's commitment to environment, the present government's commitment, the first thing the government did after coming to power in May 2021 was to change the name of the Environment Ministry to Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. Second, as one of the first in India, the Honorable Finance Minister, who is also an audience today, announced setting up of Green Climate Funds for climate change adaptation and mitigation. And also, he also announced climate change adaptation program in Kaveri Delta in assistance with Asian Development Bank at a cost of 1,825 crores. Recently, the government also announced setting up of Tamil Nadu Green Climate Company, a special purpose vehicle to implement TN Climate Change Mission, the Green Tamil Nadu Mission, and Tamil Nadu's Wetlands Mission. Further, Tamil Nadu is one of the few states in India to have introduced plastic ban. And further, the government has also signed an MOU with Switzerland-based company ICLEI to implement climate change mitigation action plan in the state. We can see here the question is not about the intention or the will. The will and the intention are both there. But as everywhere else, as in most developing countries, it is about developing the right capacity, the right know-how, and access to right technologies to accelerate actions on the ground. Some of the panel members here, for example, Eric Solheim and Benoit Lebon, have worked with India, and they'll be able to speak also about the challenges they face. And we also have an international panel because this is a global problem. There's a clear disparity between the need for and the supply of effective institutions of global governance. Invariably, there is no single governmental agency that could, a global governmental agency or an international agency that could solve this problem. With this, I would like to introduce our guests. The first would be our Honorable Finance Minister and Minister for Human Resources, Dr. P.T.R.Palanivel Rajan. He is also founder of the Dravidian Professionals Forum. Before coming into politics, he was a managing director of Standard Chartered Bank, Global Markets, and he's an alumnus of MIT Sloan School of Business. Followed by Dr. Eric Solheim. He's a very well-known name in the world of environment and climate change mitigation. He served as executive director of UN Environment. He was announced by Time magazine as hero of the environment, and he also served as a minister for environment in Norwegian ministry. Benoit Le Bon is a very, very well-known in energy efficiency across the world. He served as the head of IPEAC and G20 countries intergovernmental organization to suggest countries on energy efficiency policies. Currently, Benoit works as a senior policy advisor to the French government. We have Botschafterin Irene. She is a co-founder of Women's Network for Energy Transition. She served as an Austrian ambassador to China, Mongolia, Brazil, and several other countries. She also sat in the board of IAEA, headed UNIDO's New York office. And we also have Dr. T.R.B. Rajan. He's a 3-time legislator and contributes a lot on environment and forest conservation. And he also sits in the Planning Commission of Tamil Nadu. With this, I would like to invite the Honorable Finance Minister, Dr. P.T.R.Palanivel Rajan, to give the welcome address.
Thank you, Dharani, and thank you everyone on the panel for agreeing to be here. If I could just take 30 seconds to say that every time we have one of these events, I'm more and more impressed at the range of experts and specialists and people of accomplishment we're able to bring together. And the credit for that goes to people like Dharani and Puhal Gandhi, the executive coordinators. First, congratulations and thank you for that. Second, let me thank the very distinguished panel. We have a lot to learn from you, and we're very grateful for your time and your insight. If I could just add a couple of things to what Dharani said at a very high level, we are a state of between 75 and 80 million people the last time we took a census. So in that sense, a big state, almost 18th or 19th or 20th largest country in the world, if we were by ourselves. Characterized by relatively high income, relatively high social development, relatively high human development within Tamil Nadu. Also relatively high consumption because of relatively low Gini coefficient and inequality. That comes with some benefits. It also comes with some costs. We have very high per capita consumption. A lot of that creates waste. And so we probably generate more waste per person than most other states in India, where they are not as developed and they don't have as much, and they have much worse inequality. So there are far fewer big consumers. On the plus side, we are the #1 state, I think, in India for renewable energy. We have naturally high levels of insolation. So it's a good place for solar. We also have fairly good wind, though it's very seasonal. And so I think something like 30% of our total power generation on a good day comes from renewable sources, which is quite high by Indian standards or developing economy standards. The bad part, of course, is because of the cyclicality of seasonality and because of the time of day and the time of the year and the monsoon season and so forth, and the lack of really good, efficient and cheap storage solutions, we end up having to depend a lot on conventional sources of energy. Of course, the future looks a bit brighter for us than most because things like offshore wind, things like biomining for drop-in fuels that I was just talking to somebody about earlier this week, potentially someday wave energy. And of course, we are still a relatively highly forested state, somewhere around 38, 39%. And we plan to do a lot more, and that gives us some carbon trading credits possibilities and so forth. All this on one side, the government needs to do some structural things policy-wise, which we have not done particularly well, though we claim we are socialist and for public transport. Our financial policies and our taxation policies have led to one of the highest per capita vehicle ownerships in India. We have a huge number of two-wheelers, about 25, 26 million registered two-wheelers, a lot of pollution and complications that arise from that. We have not at all discussed socially the notion of conservation or cultural transformation of habits to prevent kind of the early stages of this consumption boom, which comes with a lot of prepackaged, high waste, high packaging kind of content. And we don't really have any kind of policy in place for household waste management in what is effectively the most urbanized state in India. So roughly 50% of our population lives in urban areas, and we don't really have a good policy in place, nor do we have buy-in socially for that. On the other hand, as Dharani said, the clock is ticking. India has announced that our ambition is to be net zero by 2070. How doable that is, I don't know. I'm still only at the state level. But I did make a comment at an earlier conference that if India is to achieve it by 2070, then Tamil Nadu must achieve our net zero at least by 2050, if not 2040, because that's the gap between Tamil Nadu and the Indian average. So we need to be at least 20 years ahead of the curve. I think it's doable by a combination of innovation and technology, good policy making, and getting buy-in from the society. But above all, I think innovation and new storage capabilities, new technologies for renewable energy will be the key for us. With that, let me again welcome and thank the distinguished panel. We're very excited to have you with us. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.